Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Conroy-Roth, and you are watching the latest episode of Lightning Leadership. With me today is subject matter expert and guru, Staci Kimmell, and we're going to talk about unconscious bias. Hi, Staci.
Hello.
This issue is so important. And a couple of months ago, I was leading a workshop, and someone asked me after the workshop, I think the workshop was the power of no, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the person asked me during the session, what do you do about unconscious bias? Any tips for that? And I stumbled, right? I stumbled on what to say. We talked about suppression. We talked about recognizing it. We talked about working through it and acknowledging it first.
Yeah, yeah.
But let's talk about that today. Tell me about unconscious bias. What is it? How do you get around it? Tell me everything.
So the tricky part is in the word unconscious.
Okay.
So as soon as you recognize that this is human behavior, default behavior, we all carry around unconscious bias. As soon as you detach it from some sort of malicious intent, then you can talk about it like any other skill set, any other challenge that you have at work. So it also, the word unconscious makes it extra tricky to address because it's not, you're not going to feel yourself giving unconscious bias towards somebody. It's something that is genuinely innate, and you have to consciously think about it in order to consider whether or not you're applying it in that situation.
So is acknowledgement the first step that you might have it? A
Well,
bias?
I think it absolutely is. Because it's unconscious, you have to recognize that it could be there. You won't necessarily be able to look inside and confirm, oh my gosh, I am committing unconscious bias.
Yeah.
If you give the possibility that it could be happening, then there's lots of different ways where you can look at the data
Yeah.
around the decisions you make, the attendees that are in the meetings that you attend on a regular basis. So it's almost like allowing yourself to think about the possibility and then looking to confirm that.
Okay. So tell me about, I guess, trying to understand what a bias might be, right? I've got opinions on all sorts of things. Those that know me that I do. It's just a thing. I don't know what.
Yeah,
Genetic
yeah.
there. But what's the difference between an opinion and a bias?
So a bias is really looking for like people, whether you are thinking like thoughts, you solve problems in the same way, whether it's affinity bias, think about the people you walk up to and invite to go out to lunch, right? That you're going to gravitate toward those that are most like you. You could also have stereotypes, right? One of the more common stereotypes that I hear is she's a working mother. She can't work as many hours as the men can. That's an example of a perception bias. Another kind of bias is the halo effect, right? As soon as I establish that somebody is near me, like me, thinks the same way, well, then Teresa can do no wrong. Certainly that mistake has to do with somebody else's fault, right?
Yep.
Teresa always, I know how she thinks, and so it couldn't be wrong. So there's lots of different kind of biases that are in the workplace. The one that I like talking about the most is gender bias.
Okay.
So gender bias, before the term DE&I came up in the universe, we always looked for some form of equal voice, equal development, equal promotions. And so one of the things that you can, let me take a step back. So, one of the things that you have to consider is whether or not there's unconscious bias with yourself, whether there's unconscious bias with your organization, but you have to become attuned to listening for it, attuned to looking for it, because in your mind, it's almost impossible for you to see it because it is unconscious. So when you think about gender, especially in a technology field that I've always been in my career,
Me too.
you almost have to look to counteract that. As I think about myself, I'm the mother of 3 daughters. And I sure hope that as they think about their career, they have more opportunities, that they are surrounded by others in the organization that are especially in tune to that and actively work against it. So, gender bias for me is if you grab somebody that is like you and you're a male, you're grabbing a male to go out to lunch, and you talk about golf
Yeah.
and you talk about college football. Well, that's the person that when you pass by them in the hall, you might think, hey, I have something you can help me with. Would you be interested in? So it just begins to create this informal situation of coaching,
Yep.
of opportunity, because you're staying within your own comfort, your own somebody that's like you, looks like you, talks like you,
Sure.
etc.
Sure. So I think what you've said is yes, you're acknowledging it and then you're looking for it, right? Ways that I might be exhibiting it, ways that I might be selecting team members, ways that I might be building relationships,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Building people that look like me or that, I might have something in common with, which is pretty normal, right?
Hmm.
When you're in grade school, right? Or
Yeah,
high school, there's certain things that you have in common,
yeah,
right? So it's looking outside of those folks that might think differently than you or look differently than you to
yeah.
build in some cases, a community, right, of
Hmm.
differences to
Hmm.
build those strengths.
Yeah, yeah,
There's always going to be, I think there's always going to be strengths that I know that I have, and then strengths that, I sometimes struggle with. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
um, that's huge.
So in my various positions, as we would sit down for a meeting, I would look around the room and I would definitely feel like the outlier, the person that doesn't match the others,
Yep.
right? And so I'm bold, I'm outspoken. It is difficult to intimidate me. And so, as they would talk about the sports game from last night, the football game, I would say, have you seen my new shoes I'm wearing today? They are super cute. I got them just this last weekend.
Yeah.
Do you like them? And it's not that's not offensive, right? But
No, not
it's
at
a
all.
cue to them that, oh, Stacy may not want to talk about football. She might not have even watched the game last
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
So just bringing in a diversity of thought, a different perspective can sometimes bring the unconscious to the conscious.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. I'm chuckling to myself. I too have spent, my whole career in IT, and I forget the number of times that I've been the only woman in the room.
Yeah,
I lost count of that in my 20s. And
yeah,
so the idea of being able to speak football, be able to speak golf, here in Indiana, I've had to learn to speak farm, right? And so there's conversations, right, and topics that is part of very much wanting to be a member of the team
yeah,
that you do have to understand because it's going to happen again and again. However, no one's really the idea of bringing up my purse or bringing up a pair of shoes, just to kind of bring a point back. That's a great that's a great
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna giggle about that one, and might even turn the volume down. So it's all good. Staci, thank you so much. If anybody's interested in following up with Staci, please feel free to do so on LinkedIn. On the other hand, if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to like or comment maybe a time that you've had unconscious bias, and what you've done to improve yourself in the situation. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to like or comment. If you're watching on Spotify, please feel free to like, comment, and share. Thank you, Staci Kimmell.
Thank you, Teresa.
Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yay!